everybody, how's it going? So going to try something a little different today. I'm kind of faced in my normal position, actually, when I'm working and I'm looking at the computer. I'm going to throw the script out the window and I'm kind of going to wing this one and see what happens, see how you guys like this. This is part 4 of how to record heavy vocals, and we're going to take a look at 3 of the most easy and popular ways of treating your vocal, and that's EQ, reverb, and delay. So first and foremost, let's talk about EQ for a minute. Now, for me, the easiest EQ method ever is just mic position. You know, the closer in you get, the more deep the voice gets. And the further we go back, the brighter the sound gets. And I'm way back here, and I've increased the gain on the mic there by about 10 decibels. But as you can see, as I get closer, the bottom end increases, and this is called proximity effect. And this is very, very important. This not only works on singers, this works on growlers and spoken word as well. This is how those radio guys get that super slick radio sound, is by proximity effect. So that's your first and foremost EQ. If the vocalist is too dark, have him pull back a little bit. If he's too bright, bring him in a little bit. You get more of an intimate sound. Okay, so when it comes to EQing a vocal, most of the time I'm not going to do too much to it because most vocal mics do their job really well. You don't need a lot of EQ to get it to sound great. EQ should be used as a corrective action on vocals and not so much an enhancement. Again, that comes within the proximity effect idea. So what we're going to do here, just we're going to roll off the extreme bottom end, anything below, say, 80 hertz. And you do that on all your tracks in a multi-track, not just the vocal, with the exception being the bass guitar and the kick. That's where the low frequencies need to be. But guitars, vocals, all that, they don't need to be down there because you get a cumulative effect of crud building up. And then you wonder why your bass is kind of all over the place in your final mix. So the trick is, yeah, just a little bit of roll off EQ. Highway to the danger zone. Right around 80 hertz. It doesn't have to be anything too severe. If I do want something brighter, this is a trick I learned way back when, is we use a subtractive EQ. Let me show you the difference between the two. We'll use a boosting EQ first. Highway to the danger super zone. Bright, right? Gonna take you right. That's also harsh as shit. Of course, we peak the fader out. Let's take that down a bit. Highway to still harsh as shit, and it almost sounds like a telephone at that point. So one of the best ways to get a brighter vocal sound, if you really need it, is to use a little bit of subtractive EQ. And what we do here is we just take out the frequencies we don't want. Highway to the danger zone. And then take the volume up. To the danger zone. Now, I learned this way back when, like day 1 of audio school. And this is what my audio professor, Jim Cox, said to me at the time. And, 20, 25 years later, this is still stuck with me. You've got to look at an EQ like a shitty amplifier for a particular band. You turn that band up. Yes, you're going to increase that frequency, but you're also going to add noise into the signal. The smarter way to do it is to decrease the signals you don't want and then bring up your fader, because that's a far cleaner way of boosting a signal. So if you wonder why your mixes aren't sounding all that great and you've got a ton of boosting EQ going on a bunch of tracks, that's probably why. So learn how to work around the frequencies you want to keep and turn those down. Turn down the frequencies you don't want, because subtractive EQ is always going to sound better than boosting EQ. So like I said, EQ should always be used as a corrective action. So where would you be correcting? Either A, really bad room, or more common in B, especially in metal, is a mic cupper. If a guy's doing this and he just sounds like mushmouth through the whole record, you're not going to have much of a choice. You're probably going to have to get in there with an EQ and start EQing pretty severely. The problem is, highway to the danger zone. It's getting a little spitty. So we want to bring in a de-esser to kind of stomp down on the nasty frequencies. And all a de-esser is, it's a multi-band compressor set up for where the human voice gets nasty, which is right around the 4K region. Yeah, what this is going to do is you just set it up like you normally would any other compressor, set up a threshold. So when, the singer hits like an S or something other really harsh, it's just going to clamp down on that and kind of knock that part of the frequency down without affecting everything else. So what's great is Reaper has a wonderful de-esser built right into it that's absolutely free, and you can mess around with this and you can learn how to de-ess.
Highway to the danger zone.
See, it stomps right down on that T there.
Take you running to the danger zone.
So we got a little bit brighter, but it's not as harsh because it's stepping on those harsh frequencies. Again, the 4K is like right fingernails on a blackboard idea. So that's pretty cool. But like I said, I really don't think this vocal needs a lot of EQ. I was really happy with what we got. And when I did the final mix for this, all it was a low end roll off because Siegfried doesn't need a lot of EQ. He's already got a lot of top there.
Highway to the danger zone. They're gonna take you running to the danger zone.
So to recap vocal EQ, here's how I approach it. Mic position, proximity effect. Secondly, cut your EQ and don't boost. And third, if you absolutely have to, de-ess. But you're smart. You probably didn't use a lot of boosting EQ, so you're probably not going to need it. And the less effects you use, the better. The cleaner signal you're going to get. Okay, next up, I thought I'd follow my own advice to use a pop filter because I just noticed in the last clip there, things were getting a little bit thumpy, especially on the hard consonants. So pop filter is always your best friend when tracking vocals. Make sure you've got one. And if you don't, go get one. All right, so when it comes to actual effects, there's two main ones, reverb and delay. And to be honest with you, I don't use a lot of reverb on metal vocals, if ever. Somebody asked me, well, what about AC/DC? And I'm like, well, okay, great. If I'm doing AC/DC type stuff, that's wonderful. There's a lot of space for those mixes to breathe. But in like modern metal stuff, there really isn't. Even something somewhat retro featured like this, I'd rather go for a delay than a reverb. That's just kind of a personal choice. But let's take a look at some reverbs here and show you what works and what doesn't. I think with melodic vocals, reverb works a lot better than, say, with growling vocals. And we're going to use the Voxango old school verb here. This is a free reverb you can download, and it's great. We're just going to solo up.
Run into the danger zone.
Now, I got a couple things going on here. Now, if we listen to that by itself,
danger zone.
Let's listen to just the verb there. Got a lot going on all across the spectrum. Little tip, if you're using vocal verbs, go with plates. They're awesome. Now, the thing you want to do here is to avoid clouding up the mix. It's kind of like the same thing with rolling off the vocal. You might want to roll off the actual reverb itself. And what I've got here is a low frequency roll off here. Where are we at here? Wow, we're up to all the way to 380 hertz, just kind of in the mud zone there. And we're just going to do this. And that just cleans up a lot of the crud. This is in the signal chain right after the reverb, and this just cleans it up. And I really like that. That doesn't really get in the way of the mix, so that's pretty cool. You let more of those low frequencies in, things are going to get cloudier, and it's going to be much more difficult to keep under control. The other thing you need to remember when you're adding a reverb is when you add reverb on something, you're putting it further away in the mix. This is what I'm talking about. I'll just demonstrate here. I'm going to pull up the reverb send here and make sure I got the right one up here. Yeah, that's this. And we're fairly decent at this point, but I'm going to crank this up and watch what happens. So the more you turn that reverb up, the further away the vocal gets. So you got to be very sparing with it. And the other thing I'm going to mention is don't use the exact same reverb you're using on your drums. You kind of want things to have their own space in the mix. So that would be my suggestion there. And I'm going to pull up that Tortured Saint piece I was working with a while back. We're going to use a slightly different reverb. And I'm just going to show you why I don't like reverb on death metal vocals. Yeah, it just kind of clouds things up. I'm like, let me put that back on. I just, we kill the reverb and it just gets right in your face. The great thing about reverb, though, is it can be used to kind of fill in the gaps and make people sound better. That's why we use it. The trick is you need to use it sparingly. But there's the reason why the reverb is always cranked up at karaoke shows, is to make the people on stage sound a little better maybe than they really are. So we're going to go to my favorite vocal treatment, and that's delay. I always throw a little bit of echo on my vocal.
Into the danger highway
Just
to the danger zone.
Just a little bit of slap echo. It's nothing major. As you can see here, I've got it set for a quarter note and just a little bit of regen. Like we'll hear one or two echoes, maybe. That's it. Not a lot in the whole finished mix. Just to kind of fill things up a little bit, give things a little bit of space without putting it in the background. I like my vocals a little more immediate, and that's why I like delay. And the other thing I'll do is I'll time the delay to the tempo of the song. That way it makes sense musically. Nothing, that way the echoes aren't coming in at weird times and offbeats and stuff like that. I'll maybe, pan the delays out a little bit, one side a little bit slightly different than the other. Here's a mono echo.
Heading to twilight, spreading out our wings tonight.
Now I've got two taps here. One's panned hard left, one's panned hard right. They're exactly the same at a quarter note, and we're gonna just decrease one ever so slightly and watch what happens.
Heading to twilight, spreading out our wings tonight. Jumping up the deck, showing into overdrive.
And that's my favorite right there, is this cool ping-ponging effect. And that just sounds so cool in a mix.
Heading into twilight, spreading out our wings tonight. Jumping up the deck, showing into overdrive.
And the great thing about the Reaper delay is it's got the musical notes built right in. You can set it to milliseconds if you want. But you can set it to your musical notes and it'll match up with your tempo, and that's great. And that delay is a free download. So even if you don't have Reaper, I suggest you can get it. Check it over at the Kakos website, and it's just absolutely killer. It's my absolute favorite vocal delay to use. Now back on to death metal stuff. Again, I like to use a little bit of echo. And again, everything comes down at a musical time, so it works with the song and it's not too much. Now, I'll use the echo just very sparingly, just to give it a little bit of depth and don't want to bring attention to itself. Pretty cool. And as you can see here, I've got two tracks here. I've got regular echo, which again is just, hang on, that's Soar, which is a pretty cool plugin from Joey Sturgis Tones. This is a really cool plugin as well. I've got this set to like 135, and this is like a tape echo. It just gives us a little bit of... And that's a slightly darker echo. Soar adds a little bit of an EQ curve and some other cool effects in, which is great. But as you can see here, I've got something called long echo. And this is great as well. I like to use this on like long growls that kind of bend, in pitch. And you'll see why. Check this out. We're gonna unmute that and take a listen to this. Yeah, we get kind of a hurricane thing going on. That's one of my favorite things. You can see a little bit of automation here. What we're doing is we're turning up the send to the long echo. So I'm gonna solo this up and you can hear what's going on. Pretty cool. That's one of my favorite special effects. You can use long reverb tails on that sort of thing too. Like let me take a listen here, and I'm going to crank the reverb up on that. It's not going to be quite as much. It's not going to be quite the same effect. It's going to be a little bit more buried, but I'm going to take this off and I'm just going to work with the fader. What I'm going to do is I'm going to crank this up and just use it kind of as a special effect. Let's see if we get anything close to the same effect. I'm just going to ride the fader manually here on that and hear what we get in a mix. Kind of the same idea, not quite. I think I like the echo a little more because you can definitely add more regens and just have it going out all over the place. Okay, so there you go. There's some real simple tips on how to treat your vocals in a mix. Like I said, subtractive EQ is your friend. Delay before reverb, in my opinion. And if you need special effects for long traily bits that have bends in them, longer delays can be really cool. The trick is don't overuse them. Anyway, hope you guys got something out of this tutorial. I hope you like this format. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you got any more questions about treating vocals, please leave some questions because I want to hear from you guys. I'll see you Friday.